Hello everybody, I would like to welcome you here in this session. My name is Klaus Riehm and I'm working as a pre-sales engineer at SAP, and I really have the pleasure to introduce you to our new SEP sesam version called Tigon. And we have a bunch of new functionalities, cool functionality, which will be really useful for our customers and our partners. And I have the pleasure to present all what is new in this version. Tigon, I'm not sure if you are familiar with this term, because Tigon is kind of a hybrid animal. It's a mixture of a tiger and a lion. So I think this fits pretty well with our slogan, hybrid backup and restore. Now we have a hybrid animal as a version name. So that's pretty cool, I think. Well, here's just an overview of this brand new functionality we have in this version. You can see that there are a couple of new agents. An agent for SAP ASE, which is the new name for the former Sybase database. SAP has acquired Sybase, I think 7 years ago maybe, and they have renamed the Sybase database to ASE. And this could be either the basis for a SAP NetWeaver application running on top of ASE, but it could also be a standalone database and used in this user scenario. That's also possible. And our backup agent will work in both cases. Then we have a brand new agent for KVM based on the QEMU hypervisor. And we have a new agent, Kopano, which is the successor of the ancient Zarafa module, which is now called Kopano. Yeah, we have some pretty new cool features. I will talk about this in a couple of minutes. And some enhancements of our support matrix, that's also important. And some enhancements in the functionality, which I will also cover on a couple of slides. Before I start with the functionality of this brand new version, I will have a little introduction where we are with our SEP sesam, with our product. Then I will have a little look on our roadmap so that you can see how this version Tigon fits into our roadmap in the complete schedule, so that you get an impression of how our product evolves on a time scale. And then I will talk about these brand new functionalities. So just as a little intro, to provide you the information of this Gartner portal, Gartner Peer Insight. This is now the most up-to-date look you can have. I've taken this snapshot just this morning. It's from the 11th of October. And you can see that our software is ranked pretty well in comparison to all our market competitors. You can see that we have 4.7. This is a very good ranking. And well, in this portal, end users can provide their feedback on the backup software they are using. And there are no fake entries, I can promise, because Gartner is really doing a serious job in selecting entries, and all the end users have to register before they can provide their feedback. And as an example, you can see the latest 2 entries into this portal. You can see the customer, from the branch of the customer, the size of the customer, and then the statements of the customer. And we are very proud of especially our service and support, because it's always rated excellent. So the overall rating of our service and support is 5.0. And I think that's a very good achievement. So take care and have a look at this portal, that you know the latest information about our product. About our strategic partnerships, you should know that we have a lot of world-class partners. We are working very closely together, and on top of it, there is SAP. We are working closely with SAP, and all the other partnerships, most of them are hardware or software vendors like IBM, like SUSE, like Red Hat, like Fujitsu, like Lenovo and Micro Focus. So they are all independent, huge hardware and software vendors, but they all work closely together with SAP and SAP as an application, no matter if it's NetWeaver, if it's HANA, if it's ASE, it's all on top of these hardware vendors. And so we have a lot of corporations of these hardware vendors together with SAP. The latest version was in October last year, the version 4.4.3. Then in June this year, we have released our latest version, Tigon, with a lot of brand new functionality I will talk about later on. And two of the functionalities which have been planned for Tigon have been postponed to a version 2 of Tigon, which will be released next Monday, so that the last functionalities will be self-service restore and Kopano support. And I've included this functionality in 2 slides in this presentation as well. So we are talking about the full set, the complete set of functionalities for Tigon plus Tigon version 2. If we have a little look at the future, just for your information, there's planned a new version for end of this year. It's called Growler, which is another hybrid animal. It's a mixture of a grizzly bear and a polar bear. So this is a brand new version, and the main functionality, the hottest topic in this version will be the native S3 interface. But there are also a couple of other functionalities, and these might be subject to change, but that's our plan today. And of course, we have current modules which have been released in a first version, but they will continue to evolve over time. We will do some optimizations for all these modules. They are living module, and the more we get customers, the more we get requirements from the customers, the more we get the real life user scenarios and so on, we will adapt these modules to real life usage. Let's talk about ASE. And ASE is a module of our backup software. You should know that if you install our client package, all the database modules are part of this client package. No matter if it's Oracle, if it's DB2, if it's ASE, it's all included in this client package. And you can use it depending on your licensing. So the ASE module is based on, I think it's a SQL interface, a set of SQL commands to extract the data and trigger the database for backup. And it's available on Linux as well as on Windows. That's important. We are using ASE version 16. That's our basis where we have developed and tested our module. And you can use a lot of functionality of our backup software for backup of ASE. Here's a little sketch, a little picture of how it works. We have the SAP client installed on the SAP server, and there's a little shared object, or on Windows it's a DLL dynamic library. And by this library, which will be provided by our SAP client, we extract the data streams from the ASE database. The database provides the data streams by means of a pipe, and we get the data streams with our multi-processing, multi-streaming model. We can do parallel backups of this database, and the backup server gets the data streams and can work with the data streams. He can put the data stream on the backup target, like disk storage, like tape, and so on, and you can benefit from all the functionalities of a professional backup software, which are the easy administration, because we have a graphical user interface. You can fairly easy administer all these backups of your ASE database. You can use that the backup server takes care of the retention policy, and especially the removing of backups, the purging of end-of-life save sets. That's very important. Otherwise, the data would increase until eternity. So you have to remove backups if they have end of life. You can take care of the schedules that the backup will be done automatically. You do not have to do a manual backup or trigger manually the backup. It's done from our schedule on an automatic and regular basis. You can make use of the migration, which means you copy the data maybe from a native disk storage to a deduplicated disk storage and then migrate the data to tape for offsite location somewhere for archiving. So that's all possible with our backup software. You can use the deduplication and reduce the amount of backup data significantly. And therefore, you can save disk storage a lot with our deduplication algorithm. And you can make use of the replication for also bringing data to another offsite location for disaster recovery purposes. And you can use consolidation, which means that you do not have to install a specific backup software only for ASE backup, because you can use our software not only for ASE backup, but for all other databases or hypervisors or whatever you have in your environment. You can use our software and consolidate whatever you have installed in your environment. And also the disaster recovery, if it's a physical server, and very often in the SAP environments, maybe because of performance or other reasons, the SAP servers are physical servers. And then you do not only have to take care of the database, you also have to take care of the server and the operating system, so that if the server crashes, you can take another server and take your prepared DVD or USB stick and reinstall the operating system and then do a restore of your database. So you also have to take care of the operating system by the disaster recovery, and that's available for Linux and for Windows as well. We support both platforms. Yeah, and we have created a new backup type in our graphical user interface for the SAP ASE database. So let's talk about KVM, and I think that's something we can really proud of. And if you look at the 5 hypervisors we provide with online agents, first we have the VMware agent. And VMware, I would say it's nothing special, because almost every backup software is able to do a VMware snapshot-based backup. Everybody can do that. Then we have Hyper-V agent, and most of the backup software is able to do a Hyper-V snapshot-based backup. Then we have the Citrix Xen server backup, and I think there are maybe 5, something like that, backup software on the market which are capable of doing Citrix Xen snapshot-based backup. Then we have next the Red Hat Virtualization backup, and I think there are only 2 or 3 products capable of doing Red Hat Virtualization snapshot-based backup. And now we have released the KVM, and I do not know any other backup software having an agent for online-based backup of KVM. So this is something brand new, and it's snapshot-based, it's online, it requires QEMU as a hardware hypervisor, and we use the libvirt API. This is very important. Let's have a look at the graph on the right side. We have the Linux operating system, the kernel on the bottom, the KVM hypervisor, the hardware hypervisor, QEMU on top, who provides the single VM, the provisioning of the single VMs. And then we have the libvirt library on top of this with the command line interface for triggering QEMU, providing the virtual machines. And on top of this libvirt library, on this API, we have our agent. And sometimes there is the question asking, oh, well, Red Hat Virtualization is also based on KVM. Couldn't we use the KVM agent for doing a RAF backup? And to be honest, it's not possible, because RAF provides its own library. It's the overt library, which sits on top of the libvirt library. And our agent, our RAF agent, is using the overt library, and it's not using the libvirt library. And you cannot use both agents in parallel. That's not possible. If the overt is there, then you cannot use the libvirt. So that's how you can distinguish both agents. Yeah, there are some functionalities associated with our KVM online agent. You can do the LAN-free backup if you use the RDS, if you install the RDS on the KVM host, because on each KVM host you have to at least install an SAP client, but it could also be a remote device server which acts as a media agent, so that you can directly from one KVM host, you can extract the data directly to the backup target. Yeah, of course, it's only copy and full backup today because the API doesn't provide incremental backup. Yeah, and for the restore, you can provide new names or the same name, or on other KVM systems, restoring. That's all possible with our agent today. Our VM usability toolbox is also a very cool thing. With our software, it was able to define single backup task for single VMs. But if it comes to an environment where you have hundreds of virtual machines, it's a tedious task creating job by job for each VM. And then creating hundreds of jobs could even take a day or 2 days or a week, depending on how complex these backup tasks are. And with our new dialog box, it's possible to create all these backup tasks in one step, and they will automatically be created all together. You can specify the task group, you can predefine a task group, and then make sure that all the new backup tasks will be part of just one task group. And you can have a task group for your productive VMs, you could have a task group for your test VMs, and a task group, maybe SAP VMs, so whatever you have in your environment, you can define your own structure depending on your own needs. Yeah, you can not only create tasks for virtual machines, you can also delete tasks, because maybe you have tasks in your SEP sesam configured, but the virtual machines are no longer existing. Then you would like to remove these backup tasks. And in the third section on the bottom, you will be displayed all the backup tasks which do not have a VM, and then you can remove all these tasks with just one click. So we have some task creation options on the top. We have the filter area, and if you filter maybe for Windows operating system or the state, the power state of your virtual machine, you can filter the displayed virtual machines. And then we have the virtual machines which do not have a backup task currently. So you know exactly these are the VMs which are not saved, which there is no backup task existing for these virtual machines. Then we have the sections with the normal backup task for existing virtual machines. And we have the section for tasks without existing virtual machines. And on one view, in one dialog box, in one pane of glass, you can have a total overview of your VMware environment. And it's also possible to create some automation so that new virtual machines will be detected automatically. The backup task will be created automatically. And there are several possibilities for specifying the criteria. If it's a productive virtual machine, the name starting with a suffix maybe, and then this backup task will be created. And if it's a test virtual machine starting with test underscore maybe, then this will be just skipped. But you can also use the meta tags, the custom attributes of your virtual machines as a selection criteria, and much more possibilities with this automated virtual machine detection mechanism. Starting next week with our version 2 of Tigon is the self-service restore. And this is part of our strategy moving to a web-based user interface. Our graphical user interface today is based on Java, and with our last version, we have released a dashboard, which is our first web-based user interface with a lot of reporting and monitoring functionalities. And now we will release the self-service restore so that the customer itself is able to do a restore of its own data, and he does not have to bother the admin, maybe at Saturday night calling your admin because he needs some data back because of a disaster. Now he can just use our web restore agent, this kind of assistant, and do the restore on its own. Yeah, it's web-based front end running in your browser. You can switch between the dashboard and the restore agent. That's possible. Yeah, with the new agent for Kopano, we support all the functionality which we have already supported with our Zarafa backup agent. Now with the Kopano agent, the new version of Zarafa, we support all the functionalities. There's also supported single item restore, like single mail restore. That's all supported with just one exception, and that is with the new API, Zarafa doesn't provide a command for incremental backups. So incremental backups is not possible with the Kopano agent. However, we are in close contact with Kopano and they are working on it. So as soon as the incremental functionality will be available in the API, we will also make it available in our agent. Yeah, and there's a new backup type for Kopano integrated in our software when you create the backup tasks. Yeah, then the authentication. I know that lots of customers and partners are waiting for this functionality, and with our latest version from 2016, yeah, from last year, we have released some sort of authentication. It needed some more development to make it complete, to make it perfect. And that's why we have a new authentication now released with Tigon. And the benefits are that we have some users, some roles, some permissions, so that you have to log into our software, into our user interface, that not everybody can use it. You need to have a login. And there are two possibilities for authentication. First of all is the policy-based authentication. And this was the authentication which was already used in our software. And it's called policy-based authentication because it's defined in the Java policy file. And there's an example how you can provide the permissions for some specific Java users. And it's based on existing clients and existing users defined from the administrator on these clients. Then you can switch in our graphical user interface to a brand new database-based authentication, and now you can create your own user and your own permissions, your own passwords, so that these users can log into our software, and these information, the user information, the permission information, will be kept in the database of the backup server. In the next step, with our next version, there will be some integration into Active Directory and LDAP. And this is the next step of authentication, because then SAP sesam does not take care of its own authentication, users and policies. Then we make use of the Active Directory or the users which are provided there and the permissions. So then let's talk about initial seed. Why do you need initial seed? Initial seed is a mechanism that you can physically transport data from one location to another location and import this data on the new location. And you need this if you set up a replication, because then you might have a local Si3 DedupStore somewhere in a branch office maybe. And if you set up replication, then the initial phase to transfer all the data, even if it's deduplicated data, if the blocks are not at the target, then you have to transfer all the blocks. And if there are terabytes of data, this could take weeks, definitely too long. You don't have the bandwidth for that, and then no one else can work with its application if you have to use this bandwidth. So you need some functionality to export the data, the deduplicated data store from the branch office and bring it physically, maybe a USB disk or something like that, physically to the data center, import it at the data center, and then start the replication, and only the data changes according to your change rate will be transferred to the data center. So this reduces significantly the time to set up replication, and well, it also saves bandwidth, and it's also working the other way around. If there is a disaster and you have to provide the replicated data to the branch office because the disaster was in the branch office, you can export the data from the data center and import it on the branch office, and so bringing back all the replicated data. So it's working vice versa in each direction. Yeah, then we provide a new protocol. Of course, we already had a lot of protocols, encrypted protocols for the communication of the backup server and the client. We use the SSH protocol. And for the data stream, to encrypt the data stream, when we transport the data from location A to location B, we used the HTTPS protocol, which is also a secure protocol. And now we provide an alternative to this HTTPS protocol. You can use the certificate-based data connection. We are used on OpenSSL. OpenSSL is integrated in our software to provide the certificates, but it's also possible to have your own certificates, to use external certificates for the SSL connection. That's also possible. And here is an overview of the protocols we are using today. Data transferred, if it's not encrypted, you could use the FTP or the HTTP protocol. If it should be encrypted, you can only use HTTPS. And now we have the alternative to use SSL as a data transport protocol. Talking about NDMP, of course, SEP sesam was able to use NDMP. In the first release, it was only possible to do a full backup of NDMP streams. And you know, that's kind of a hassle, because in case of a restore, you always have to restore the full NDMP volume of a storage array. Then we have introduced the incremental backup to reduce the amount of data for the backup target, for your disk storage or tape. And now we have introduced single file restore, so that we do not only back up the data stream, we also back up the catalog, the index with all the file and directory information, so that you can do a single file restore from an NDMP stream. And you do not have to restore the full NDMP stream, the full volume. You could just mount the backup. That's a standard functionality with SAP sesam. You can mount the backup, and then we have this virtual file system providing this single file restore functionality for an NDMP stream. And with this mounting functionality, you do not even need a specific hardware, because normally with an NDMP backup, you need to have the same hardware for the restore. If you have done NDMP backup of a NetApp, then you need exactly the same NetApp machine for the NDMP restore. And this could be an obstacle. If your NetApp machine is broken and you would like to do a restore, then you have to rent a NetApp somewhere to get the same machine for doing a restore. And with our mount functionality, you could restore all this data via the file system, and using this single file restore option also. And that's now the view how you can select the single files from the NDMP backup stream. Yeah, Si3 encryption means that we can encrypt our DedupStore now. And we already were capable of encrypting native disk storage or data store with the AES 256 algorithm. It was also possible to encrypt the data on tape, of course, yes. And now we are able to encrypt our DedupStore. And the data stream comes into the memory. We are doing an in-memory inline deduplication. The data stream will be cut into chunks, into little blocks. All these kind of blocks are compressed, and now they are also encrypted. It's possible to encrypt all the data blocks. So even the DedupStore now is more than 100% safe from any other persons doing any damage from your data. And this was a functionality which was a requirement from a huge project in the public sector, and they have an BSI auditing, and they had the requirement that the DedupStore had to be encrypted. So we developed this functionality. We cut the data stream into chunks, and the chunks will be processed by our encryption module, and the encrypted blocks will be saved on the DedupStore. That's how it works essentially. If we talk about Red Hat Virtualization, we have a tiny new functionality that when restoring the snapshot will be reduced by the null bytes with a specific command which is integrated in our software now, so that you can save space when restoring snapshots. Normally, if you back up a virtual machine from a Red Hat virtualization environment, the virtual machine might be provisioned for maybe 2 terabyte, but it's only using 100 gig because there's no more data currently in this virtual machine. So it's actually using 2 terabyte, but most of these 2 terabytes are just null bytes because it's not used yet. And this takes some space on the backup target. You can reduce this space dramatically by using deduplication, of course, yes. But when restoring the data, the snapshot will take the complete 2 terabyte again. And with this command, it will take only 100 gig and saves a lot of space when doing the restore. And that's how it works. We have the snapshot, and the snapshot will be reduced with this command by all these null bytes. The new day event. And since long, we have the requirement of our customers that the new day event shouldn't cancel all running jobs. This was how it worked from history, because in ancient times, when you had only tape backup and only drives, and sometimes the backup task got stuck, then you had to define every 24 hours that all the tasks will be cancelled, and you have to restart everything again. However, nowadays, with a huge increasing amount of data, sometimes a backup takes longer than a night. It takes longer even than 24 hours. That's possible, especially if you use our follow-up events. You have backup tasks running couple of hours, and if the backup tasks are successfully finished, then the migration task will start directly triggered by the backup software, and this might take more than 1 day. So now it's possible to specify the option so that the SEP sesam doesn't cancel running tasks. And I think this is very helpful if it comes to enterprise environments with a huge amount of data for backup, huge full backups. And so it's absolutely necessary to keep track with the development in the IT infrastructure environments. Yeah, that's the option in the dialog box with the new day event. You can click on all events if you want to cancel or not all these backup tasks or restore tasks or whatever. With respect to support matrix, we also have some new things. First of all, we support VMware vSphere 6.5, and there's a full compatibility with older vSphere versions. So the simplest thing what you need for backup is triggering a snapshot. Triggering a snapshot was possible with vSphere 5.0 and 5.5, and it's now possible with 6.5 as well. So it's completely backwards compatible. And this is very important if it comes to restore of older backups done with the vSphere 5.5. It's now possible to restore these backups into vSphere 6.5. Yeah, and then we have the Windows 2016. That's also important because it has been released in November last year, I think already. but it was somehow unlucky because we released our version in October last year, and Windows Server 2016 was released in November, just after our release. That's always a little bit bad, but now it's integrated in our software since June now, so that all the customers who are using Windows Server 2016 have the right client which is working with this operating system. And it also supports the Hyper-V 2016, so our Hyper-V online module is also making use of the latest version of Hyper-V from Microsoft. That's essentially the functionality of our new version Tigon. And I think it's really a big bunch of useful and cool functionality. And some of them are released in June already. So we have customers already using this functionality. So we have feedback from the customers. We are improving these functionalities all the time. That's a continuous process. And I hope I could bring some interest to you so that you download our software, install it. I just have to say thank you for your time, for your interest in our software, SEP sesam. And if you have further questions, just don't hesitate to send us an email via sales@sep.de. That's fairly easy, and we will answer all your questions. Thank you very much for your time, and have a nice day.